but again, okay, what you're saying, people, and welcome back to another live stream. Now, before we get into this, make sure you follow me on my Telegram channel. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Post a lot of different trading setups there throughout the week, and you'll be missing out on that. So make sure you go check that out. But like I said, another live stream and talk you through what's happening in the charts today and see if you've got any opportunities coming our way. So first up, we've got AUD/USD. As you can see, we're looking quite bearish now with this one, and we're coming into a key level here on the daily time frame, which is the daily range that I've been drawing for the past couple of weeks now. So as you can see, price has been respecting this range here of resistance up there around 0.78 and this support around 0.76500, and price has been respecting that and bouncing between those two levels. Couple false breakouts we've had, as you can see. We broke to the downside, but then turns out was false. Same there, broke to the upside, came straight back down, back into that same range. And we also got this trend line as well, which is giving us a hint that we could be seeing a break towards the downside here, because again, a break of that trend line and hold could give us the idea that potentially we're going to have start to have a reversal, or at least a deeper pullback to the downside for AUD/USD, and see maybe slightly a bearish trend to the downside here. So again, we probably need to see a daily close beneath this trend line and beneath that support. So again, probably not to rush too much into shorts for AUD/USD, but I do think potentially we could be seeing a bigger push to the downside for this pair back to around 0.74, so around about this area here in the market. If I just zoom out, you can see prior resistance here. I think that's weekly resistance, so prior weekly resistance didn't get a retest of that area, so we could be seeing a really nice push to the downside for AUD/USD. So I do think we could be seeing a really nice breakout and could look for around maybe around about 260 pips to the downside. So I think we could be seeing a long-term move to the downside, so could just be getting prepared to take those pullbacks to the downside. But again, we do need to see a daily close below that level, because it could be the case by the end of the day we pull back up and close back above this key area of support with the trend line and the support. But if we do go and break it, which does look likely, again, the downside move could be very prominent, and we could be seeing a really big push to the downside for AUD/USD in the next coming days and next coming weeks as well. EUR/USD, again, for this one, very looks like it's still kind of consolidating. Looks like we could be seeing a breakup potentially, but again, the pair does not look the best or the cleanest right now. Again, I'm probably favouring a move to the downside now because of the structure of this market. We had this big impulsive move to the downside. Looks like price was trying to push on higher, failing to do so, giving us a bit of a rejection at this area, a bit of a double top. And it looks like price is slowly wanting to move to the downside. So bias is to the downside for EUR/USD. I think we could slowly work our way back down to the lows here, and potentially even the lower, see a lower low. As you can see, the bearish momentum there from that close of the 4H candle is quite bearish, and could probably be seeing a bit of a pullback maybe. But I do think EUR/USD looks like it's rolling over to the downside, unless we go and take out this high here where the momentum changed. If we take out that high, then I might start changing my bias, but it does look like Euro USD is going to roll over to the downside here, back to those previous lows, maybe even see price go a lot further. GPUSD, we're looking very bearish here, as you can see in the market, taking out this level here, broke, retested it, and fell to the downside. So it looks like we're getting a breakout towards the downside. Again, I think price could be on its way to around this area here, around 1.737,300, which is this area, well, range or so that price broke to the upside. Didn't really get a retest of it, so I think could be seeing further continuation to the downside for GPUSD. Breaking below that level there, it's retested that, so I do assume that we could be seeing a breakout from the daily chart as well. We've got this trend line here in the market, which does look like price wants to break out of. So again, if we do get a close similar to how the day is looking right now, I think we could be seeing a bigger move to the downside now for GPUSD and start to see a bit of a bigger retracement. So it looks like we could be seeing some US dollar strength next coming days or weeks, because AUDUSD looks like it's moving to the downside, Euro USD downside, GPUSD as well. So it does look like we could be seeing some US dollar strength. In that case, could be starting to see a bit more of a reversal for those pairs that have been in the bullish run for the past, I don't know, couple months or 3 months or so. So I do think GPUSD is on its way back down now. Could see a bit of retracement and then continuation to the downside. But again, it would be nice if we get a daily close like this, breaking through that trend line there in the market. USD CAD again looking bullish here. It looks like we're coming back into that key level 1.26. Again, as you can see, really key level of support. Had a bit of a false breakout here, but then we had a true breakout and price really took off to the downside. Looks like it's found some support though, and it's coming straight back into that level. So if you do get back above that level, I think we could be seeing a reversal if it holds. We do have this trend line as well, keeping us in a bit of a downtrend. So initially test there, multiple there, and again there. So get above all of that area, I think USD CAD could be seeing price take off to the upside. Drop down to the 4H, you can see we're still looking very bullish here in the market. So I do think price can still continue much longer to the upside, back to that 1.26 and maybe even further if we hold above. But again, it's a very, very strong level, so we might actually fall to the downside from it, bit of retrace maybe. But we did get back above this key support here in the market. So as you can see, we took off from it. Really nice support here, big push to the upside, a lot of bullish momentum. Crawl back above it, held it, and then we're taking off to the upside again. So yeah, I do think USD CAD is on its way back up to around 1.26 and potentially even further, but 1.26 is a strong barrier, so could send price back down, but it does look like it's pushing back up. USDJPY is starting to look a little bit bearish here, but again, we still have this kind of range here. Again, I'm not too convinced by the price action really for USDJPY. Is very, very corrective, very choppy here. It does look like it's rolling over to the downside, but I'm not too sure if it has enough momentum to go and break through that support. If it does, we'll probably see a bigger move to the downside, because at that point we'll probably have this weekly trend line here. So I just zoom out. We'll probably have this weekly trend line here coming into action, and that could be what's driving the price to the downside, all that selling pressure from that weekly trend line there. So if that's the case, then if we do see a break of that lower support there, I do expect to see a bigger move to the downside for USDJPY back into around this area here, which is around 107 or 106 800. So it could see a really nice push to the downside for USDJPY, but it kind of is still stuck in that range, and because of how corrective it is, it might see another push back to the upside and just continue the range between that resistance there and that support. But again, price action really corrective, so not convinced just yet. A break of that, however, and hold could see us have a bigger move to the downside there, so that could be quite interesting there to see if we can get a move back into that level. And as you can see, a lot of momentum came to the upside from that same level, so it does look like a healthy target of where you think USDJPY could go if it does break through that support. USDCHF is kind of just trading along key level of resistance here. So as you can see, really strong resistance previously, sent the market down. Now we're kind of just trading along that area. So it does look like we could be seeing slowly the market form a bit of a bowl shape here, and then continue to the upside, because as you can see with these major lows here, we're kind of failing to push really through those levels. We're kind of just starting to well, the previous low looks like it's actually higher than that low there. So it does look like the momentum of the market slowly changing and probably seeing us break to the upside. So even though we do have this key level, that price is still holding it as resistance. I think we might see a bit of a pullback, but I do expect that to break now, because that structure of the market is showing me that price is really struggling to push to the downside, and that the bulls are starting to come back into action here, and could be seeing a little bit retrace first, maybe another higher low, and then see price take off back to highs, which is this high up there, and possibly even give us a higher high, since the market for the previous few weeks now has been a very strong uptrend, and this here could just be a pullback and then continuation to the upside, which is probably what I'm favoring now for USD/CHF, since we're starting to form that little bit of a bowl shape. So expecting a bit of retrace, but I do think this pair could be a really nice pair to go long, back to highs again for USD/CHF. Next, going to take a look at Euro JPY. So Euro JPY looking very bearish right now. It's broken through this trend line here in the market that was respected for numerous times here in the 4H. So as you can see, multiple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So the trend line was respected a lot, and now we've actually had a break below it. Prices come back up to around this area here and it's fallen back to the downside. So I do think Euro JPY could be on its way back down now. Again, we've had a very, very big bullish run for this pair over the past few weeks, and it does look like it's running out of energy. So I do think we could see a nice push to the downside, a continuation to the downside for Euro JPY. We're getting back below this key level of resistance here in the market. So multiple times prices test this area as resistance and support as well there. So I think keeping below this area could actually send market all the way back down to around this key area here, which is around 128,300 give or take. So I do think price will continue to the downside to around this area here. And again, we might see a pullback back into that area as resistance, but I do think it's a straight move to the downside now for Euro JPY back into that area. Yeah, I'll take a look at AUD/USD now. AUD/USD, I was saying I do expect price to probably continue to the downside here. However, we haven't really had a confirmation yet, because if I just jump to the daily really quickly, you can see we do have this trend line, which is still technically intact because we haven't had a break of it yet. The close of that candle hasn't happened. We still have about 12 hours left of the day before that candle closes, so anything could happen. But if we do close sim to how we're looking now, it's telling me we're having a break of that trend line, so we're probably likely to go and break through this support here. And I think this is kind of the last barrier of price before we get that bigger move to the downside, back down to around 0.74, because as you can see, this area of resistance and support is actually, there's a really nice daily range for us. We had a false breakout there, and price just contained in that range there. So I do think if we see a break out of this range, we'll probably see a bigger move to the downside, back down to 0.74, which is the previous weekly resistance. This area here, weekly resistance, we didn't get a retest, we just took off. So I think price is on its way back down to retest that. But again, we need to see a daily close there to get a bit more confidence that that could be happening. I personally would not look to, well, we could look to go long on AUD/USD, but I don't think it will be very long lived, because we could be taking off to the downside here. I think the bigger move is to the downside, so could be looking for selling opportunities if we're to see some pullbacks. Of course, we still have this support intact, so could see a bit of reaction to the upside maybe towards the end of the day, and then could see tomorrow or maybe the day after go and break through it if we do hold underneath that trend line there on the daily. But my bias is to the downside for AUD/USD, having really impulsive move now, so do expect to see some pullback eventually for AUD/USD. But if we do get a close similar to how we're looking right now, I do think price is on its way to 0.74, potentially even further if we're having a reversal. But yeah, could be looking to capitalize on that down move of around I think it was 260 pips. Yeah, so around 260 pips, 60 pips to the downside. Does look like a really good move potentially for AU. Obviously, however, if we don't and we pull back up and close back above that trend line, that could be just a bit of a wick to the downside, bit of a false breakout to retest that support, and we could actually see another swing back up. But again, we'll cross that bridge if price was to do that. But right now, price is looking very bearish. I think we could see price take off to the downside. Next, going to take a look at AUD/JPY. which is similar to AUD/USD. And as you can see, this market is also looking quite bearish here. I believe we've also broken through a bit of a trend line again for this market. So if we're currently breaking through, we haven't yet broken through that trend line, but really key trend line that's been attacked for quite some time now, back in November 2020. And if we do take out this trend line, I think we could be seeing a bigger move to the downside. We're taking out this 4H trend line here in the market, so that's a 4-hourly trend line. Taken that quite a while ago, and as you can see, price is looking very bearish here. So again, very impulsive leg to the downside. Naturally do expect price to retrace. We're coming into some support here in the market, so we'll just clear it up a little bit. We are coming back into this area of support in the market, so could see a bit of a reaction there. Again, we had all of this area here, which was all just consolidation or range bound market, so could see a bit of a range here, bit of retracement, bit of consolidation between these two levels. Break through that support though, price has a lot of potential to go a lot further to the downside, because again, go on the weekly chart, you can see price is quite overextended to the downside. So if we're having to pull back on the weekly, that could give us a really nice push to the downside on the daily, 4-hourly and the lower charts as well. So coming really strongly into that support, probably expect to see some sort of reaction, maybe a push back up to that area there and a bit of a retracement. But I do think we could see a break to the downside, because remember, it looks like we're breaking through that daily trend line, and that could give us a bigger push to the downside. But right now, our ADJ price is looking very bearish. I do expect price to continue to the downside for that pair. Next, going to take a look at Euro GBP. So Euro GBP looking very bullish here, as you can see, taking off to the upside. Price is pushing very strong here. I did say in my weekly analysis that we're at a very key level here on the weekly chart. As you can see, prior resistance here on the weekly, price pushed down all the way to around 0.83. We're back above that level and holding there on the weekly. So I did say we could potentially get a bit of a range between 0.85 and 0.87, which is this level here, 0.87, 0.85. And we did see a break of that level, again, very strong level. As you can see, a lot of momentum to the upside. So I do think we can see a bit of a range between those two areas now, because 0.85 is a strong weekly area of support, and 0.87 is a strong area of weekly resistance. So I think Euro GBP is on its way up to 0.87, which is this level here, where we saw this nice reaction down the 4H. So I do think that's going to happen now for Euro GBP. So expecting to see a little bit of a pullback, since we are coming back into this resistance here. But I do think we're going to break through that and see price test that 0.87, as you can see on the daily as well. If I just zoom in, we're broken out of this consolidation here. So we had all this consolidation here, and it looks like price is finally breaking out of that for yesterday's close. As you can see, if I just zoom in, we closed just above it, and it looks like price is holding that. So I do expect to see a nice push to the upside for Euro GBP back into 0.87, this resistance. Whether we break through that or not too sure. We'll cross that bridge when we get to that, but I do think Euro GBP is on its way up, and we could be seeing a nice test of around 0.87 for that pair. Next, going to take a look at NZD/USD. So NZD/USD very bearish right now, as you can see. Again, similar to AUD/USD, but this one is definitely more bearish than AUD. It does look like potentially for NZD/USD that we could be seeing a bit of a reversal here, actually back down to around 0.67 or 0.66 even, because price is looking very bearish here on the weekly. Of course, the weekly has just started. We still got about rest of the day and 3 more days left, but you can see we've taken out this trend line here in the market, retested that as resistance there a few days ago, and now we're seeing that momentum continue to the downside. So we're coming back into a key level of support, which is 0.87, and this is kind of like the last barrier for me. And once we take out 0.7, I think we're going to see a nice drop all the way down to this area here in the market, so around 0.67900. So a lot of downside potential for NZD/USD. Could just be looking to ride that as pullback, since we've had such a big push to the upside recently. As you can see, we just took off to the upside. A lot of consolidation around here, accumulation, and our price wants to probably relieve itself to the downside. So big push to the downside coming for NZD/USD back into around this area here. Again, the market is looking very bearish here, so could see a bit of retracement first, but nonetheless, I think NZD/USD is on its way back down now, back down to around 0.67900. So again, pullbacks on low time frames could be quite a good shout to look to sell this thing and see it continue further. But again, wouldn't sell it right now since how overextended we are on the 4H, and the fact that we're coming into a key daily area as well. So might see a bit of a reaction from that, but nonetheless, I do think price is on its way back down. It'd be nice to see a bit of a pullback back into around this area here. Retest it, could look for entries there to capitalize on the move back down again. But yeah, NZD/USD is on its way back down to around 0.67, or again, potentially even further, depending how bearish price is. NZD/CAD for this one, I was looking, potentially could see some buying opportunities for this one, but as you can see, prices broke out that consolidation to the downside. If we got back above this area, that could be a nice place to look to buy. As you can see, really nice daily support there, was acting as resistance. So if we got above that, could be looking for buys. As you can see, that never happened, and price broke out of its consolidation, which is all of this, to the downside very strongly actually. No retest, just taking off to the downside. A lot of momentum there. I did say in my weekly analysis that if we broke to the downside, could see price go and test that 0.89 area, but as you can see, we're just taking off past that. So right now, price is looking very bearish. Could see price push it all the way down to 0.87, depending how bearish we are. But as you can see on the weekly chart, it looks like we're just taking off to the downside. You can see we test back this weekly resistance here, and this weekly resistance gave us all of this move to the downside all the way to these lows here. I'm not saying that now we're going to get a move all the way back down to those lows, but we could be seeing a deeper retracement for NZD/CAD, potentially back into that area there, which is 0.87. So bias is to the downside here. I do think price will probably continue, maybe see a bit of retracements because of how bearish price is looking right now. We didn't even get a pullback or a retest, price just took off. So yeah, could see a bit of retracement, but then I do think NZD/CAD is on its way to the downside for that pair. GPJPY for this one, again looking very weak as well. You can see JPY is looking very strong over the course of the pairs that we just looked at, and it does look like we're going to see a nice move back until 148. So again, I said previously, back up here, if we get below this level, here in the market, key level resistance, the likelihood was that we're going to push back into this area, which is 148 of support. So I still stand by that bias. Again, price is looking very bearish here, so it'd be nice to see a pullback potentially, come and confirm that as resistance, and then see the price continue to the downside back to around 148. But nonetheless, price is looking very bearish here. Again, we already know that GPJPY is very, very extended here on the weekly time frame. You can see we've broken through numerous areas of strong resistance, and we've taken out trend lines, and we haven't had a bearish week since last week. Before last week, we hadn't had a bearish week in over about 10 weeks there. So we are due definitely some retrace now for GPJPY. And if that's the case, we could take off a lot further. Again, first target is that 148 price. Break through that, could see price go a lot further. But yeah, GPJPY looks like it's on its way to the downside, expecting a little bit of retrace, but target for GPJPY is that 148 mark there for price. Next, going to take a look at Euro AUD. So for Euro AUD, this price is looking very bullish here. As you can see, I believe we did take out this trend line here yesterday. So again, you can see, yeah, we as soon as price opened up for the day, gapped up or gapped down, had a really strong push to the upside, taking out that trend line, and price has just been on a mission since then. And I do think we could see price back at these highs soon enough, because it does look like we've had this big impulsive move a couple weeks ago. Now we're having all this retracement, and now we're having the continuation to the upside. So I do think Euro AUD is back to that high within the next few days, maybe by next week. We could see price back at those highs there. See a bit of retracement, could look to capitalize on that. We do have this key level of prior resistance that price did sort of retest. Yeah, probably did say retested it, but it'd be nice if it was to come back again and then see the continuation to the upside. But we've had taken out that trend line. It looks like we're going to see the continuation to the upside, and at that at that area there, that 1.56700 I think is the target for EUR/AUD, and EUR/USD, which again moves similar to EUR/AUD. As you can see, we've taken off to the upside. We've broken out of this consolidation area, and price has just shot to the upside there. So looking very bullish right now for EUR/NZD. Again, you can see it's helped by the weakness of NZD, but we could be seeing price come back to around this area here, which was a key area of support and resistance, that 1.7 mark. So bias is still to the upside for EUR/NZD, and I think we could still see price continue a lot further, and then maybe see a bit of a bigger retrace after this bullish move here. So we are due a bit of retrace after this extended period here, but price is looking very bullish. I do believe the target is around 1.7, that key area of resistance. So still expecting further continuation to the upside for EUR/NZD, and like I said, EUR/AUD, which moves very similar, expecting a move to the upside again for that pair. So currently in a GP CAD position, looking for a move to the upside. Again, I've been in this position since last week, looking for a nice move to the upside. We were at this key area of daily support, looking to see get a move into that previous area of support and now time resistance, and see if you can get a push into that area. Stop loss is just below that key area of support there. So if you do take that out, I will exit my trade. I already did take a bit of profit when we were up there. As price was pushing up, then we started pulling back. Did take some profit there, but still expecting to see a move into that 1.74600 level to see if we can get a nice test of that area of previous support term resistance. Then might see a bearish reaction there, or potentially could break through it, but only interested really in that push to the upside. So we'll see how this trade gets on throughout the live stream. If anyone wants me to look at any different charts, any different pairs, wants my analysis or my opinions on something, just drop it in the live chat and I'll make sure I'll give you guys some analysis on those pairs. If you want any trades as well, feel free to share. We'll take a look at them, see how they're getting along, and yeah, just put it in the live chat and I'll make sure I'll give you guys some analysis on that. But like I said, going to see how GP CAD gets on, and we'll keep an eye on some of the other pairs as well, some of the USD pairs, and see how they get along throughout today.
Anywhere you go, you belong. Anywhere you say, anywhere.
Okay, so I'm going to take a quick look at USD JPY. Okay, so for this pair, we've got like very corrective price action. We've got two key levels that price has shown respect for recently. As you can see, really nice area of resistance. Price has tested that numerous times and now is falling to the downside. Look like it's rolling over. And we're back at this support around 108, 300. Key level support, as you can see, nice push to the upside. Again, tested numerous times, push to the upside again. So we're coming back into that same level. We've got ourselves a bit of a range here. You can see the price action on the daily chart. A lot of dojis there, not a lot of momentum in those candles. So I do think if you can take out this support, we'll probably see a nice push to the downside back to around 107. Key level of support in the market, as you can see, we found support, a lot of momentum pushes to the upside all the way up to 109. So if you do take out that support, I do see a nice drop into that level there. And again, if you take a look at the higher time frames like the weekly, you can see where we are in the market. We're testing a really key area of weekly resistance, which is this trend line. So first test there, second, third, fourth, and as you can see when we test this trend line, we see a lot of momentum to the downside. So I do think we could be seeing a reaction from for USD to the downside. Again, with that JPY strength that is coming into the markets, if that was to keep it up, we could see a really nice push to the downside. But of course, this price action is very corrective. Doesn't give me too much confidence that price is about to break through this level. If we were to see suddenly momentum just kick off and see a nice break and price holds, again, could be looking for opportunities to capitalize and move to the downside. However, if we don't, we could actually see another swing back to the upside here and just continue the range. So if I just drop to the hourly chart, we've got this trend line here in the hourly. If you were to go and violate that trend line, there's a high probability we'll probably see a swing to the upside back into that resistance there on the 4 hourly time frame. So if we were to take out that trend line, high probability chance of us coming back to those highs up there and just continue this overall range here in the market. However, if we do take up that support, which could happen, JPY seems to be very strong here. If you were to take up that support, could see a really nice push back into this level here. Key area of momentum, didn't really get a retest of, just took off to the upside. So could be seeing that push to the downside coming from the weekly time frame, pushing us lower throughout the time frames. And if you do see a break of that support, really nice opportunity if you were to retest it to go short for that pair. But right now we're coming into that support now, so I wouldn't short straight away and I wouldn't buy straight away either. If we were to take that trend line, could drop to the lower time frames to capitalize and swing back up again. But for now, we are still stuck in this range and potentially could stay stuck in that range for the rest of the week. Just depends what type of price action we get. But if we were to break to the downside, we could potentially see a nice push back to 107 around that area there. Break to the upside, not too sure. Could potentially be a false breakout because again we still got that weekly trend line, so could be seeing manipulation on the higher time frame, on the higher time frames. But for now, still stuck in that range. Break through the support, push to 107, break through the trend line, swing back up again. So that's all I'm seeing right now for USDJPY. And yeah, very corrective price action, very corrective price action. So not too sure if we will get that breakout, but if it does happen, I think 107 is a likely target. So two options there for USDJPY, but again, just bear in mind, two key technical aspects need to break the trend line or the support for us to really get the confirmation that a trade could really take off in that direction. But for now, it looks like we're coming back into that support, so just need to see whether it holds or not. So yeah, I hope that analysis helped. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a few pairs here. We're going to first start with GPAUD. Okay, so for GPAUD, for this pair, we've had quite a lot of consolidation here. So we do have a key level of support and resistance going here, key range, if you would say. So key area of support resistance. As you can see, nice range there, support there, resistance there. Few false breakouts on either side, as you can see, a couple there and a couple up there. But nonetheless, price is respecting this area quite well. Recently, we've tapped back into that same area of resistance there. We've tapped back into the support, bit of consolidation, broke to the upside, tap into that resistance. So again, it's very, very choppy here and unclear for GPAUD. If we were to clear this resistance here again, I do think that time could potentially be the actual breakout. And from then on, I think we'll see a nice push to around 1.82. If I zoom out, it will be, if I actually go to the daily, actually, it'll be around this area here in the market. Around 1.82, and as you can see, if I just extend this across, you can see last time we were above this area, this was our previous range. So if you were to break through the area, could see a nice breakout to the upside to 1.82. But right now, price just seems to be stuck at that same level. So I wouldn't say this is the clearest chart to trade. It could just be a scenario where we get another swing back to the lows again, back to that 1.78 support, because we've tested that resistance. So it could just see another swing to the downside again. But again, it's just very hard to tell with this one because of how choppy the price action is. Go to the daily, a little bit clearer. Looks like we've had that impulsive move. This move here is just a bit of a retrace, and could see another impulsive move back to the upside here if you just flow with the structure of the market there. So I'm probably favoring price to break to the upside, but it could be a scenario where we get another swing to the downside again first before that happens. But I wouldn't be surprised if price was to creep back up to the highs again, break through it, hold, and then we see that push to 1.82. But for now, again, very unclear. I probably wouldn't trade this pair right now for GPUD. You can even see on the hourly time frame have that big reaction to the downside, and it looks like price could see that swing back down again, but I'm not really favoring that move. I think we could be seeing a breakout now for GPAD to the upside. And again, GPND moves similar, and you can see with this pair, we've actually had that breakout to the upside past this consolidation here. So it could be it could be a scenario where GPAD follows GPND and breaking to the upside, which I do think is likely. But then again, because we're really stuck in a range bound market, it could be we could just swing back to the downside. But for me, I'm favoring a break to the upside and see a move to 1.82. If we don't, and we start holding this area a little bit more, pushing to the downside, could see that momentum carry us all the way down back to 1.78 and just retest that and just continue on that range. But for GPAD right now, still stuck in the range here. Can expect to see another swing to the downside, but if we do clear this, can be expecting to see a push to 1.82. Next, we'll take a look at Euro JPY. So Euro JPY, again, my bias is to the downside for this one. It looks like we're finding some sort of top here. Price is failing to push on. You can see if I take this resistance, I drag that across. Really key area of resistance here in the market. You see last time we were here, big push back down to that 128,400 level. Really nice area of resistance and support. As you can see, we broke to the downside, bit of a double top going on at the top there. Broke to the downside, come back retesting it, holding that resistance. As you can see, very strong reaction to the downside. So I do think we'll see Euro JPY continue to the downside back into this level here at 128,400. We do have a level of support that might cause price to pull back up a little bit. As you can see, very strong impulsive move. You do expect to see a bit of retracement now to the upside before price does continue. But again, my bias is very much to the downside for Euro JPY now after that strong reaction. And I do think we could see a push that back down to 128.400. So biases to the downside for Euro JPY. This chart is a much more clearer, and we've also taken out this trend line here as well in the market. Key trend line tested numerous times. So as you can see, all the way back down here, tested numerous times. Take out that trend line after getting a double top. Came back, pull back into that same area of resistance there in the 4H, and I do think price is going to push down lower into this level here. So expecting a bit of retrace first since we're coming back into this area of support here. where we had a bit of consolidation, so it could cause a bit of struggle for Euro JPY, but nonetheless expecting to see a bit of retracement now and then continue down back down to 128.400, potentially even further depending if this is a reversal or a counter trend move. And gold. Now gold, again, very, very choppy. It's been lately. We're still kind of trading about this key level here of resistance. I did say if price clears this resistance, we'll probably see moving to 1770, which is this area of price support, which is now term resistance on the daily. As you can see, we're now support. Pushing to that level will be term resistance. But as you can see, dropping down to the 4H, price is really struggling to clear that resistance here. Just basically moving sideways, as you can see, even on the hourly, very unclear. But it does look like price is sort of keeping these higher lows going on the hourly chart. So if I just zoom out, you can see key higher lows here in the market. Price is still failing to push down. So I am probably favoring a push to the upside for gold. But again, we still haven't really cleared that resistance. So it could be a scenario where we do get rejected to the downside, but I'm probably favoring a move to the upside for gold here, back into that 7070. If you break through this trend line here, I'll probably favor a move to the downside here, just connecting these last swing points here on the 4H. So if you break through that trend line here, it could be a case where we just have a nice drop back to the downside again. As you can see, you've had a really strong reaction from that resistance. I would just see a continuation to the downside of that overall trend. However, if you do clear that that resistance that price is trading along, 1770 is my next target for gold, and it could potentially go further. I think we've got a bit of a sort of triangle pattern here. Looks like price could be breaking out of. So if I zoom into that, you can see in the 4H, just got those two trend lines coming in there. Looks like we could be seeing a breakout to the upside. Again, not 100% this, but it does look like price could be pushing to the upside there for gold. So yeah, definitely if price was to get back below this trend line here, back below that trend line there in the market, I probably am favoring a move to the downside. But for now, expect to see a breakout to the upside back into that 70 barrier, potentially even further if we break through that, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But buys to the upside for gold. I think we can see a push into 1770 unless we take out that trend line, which I think if we do that, back to the lows, back to 1680. So hope that analysis helped on those three pairs.
Anywhere you go, anywhere you go, you belong. Anywhere you say, anywhere you say, anywhere.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick look at a few pairs. So we'll start with GPUSD. So GPUSD looking very, very bearish here. Looks like it is pulling back slightly right now though. Again, we have broken through this key level. As you can see, price came back, retested the resistance, fell to the downside. On the daily chart, it looks like we're pushing down as well. We've got this daily trend line here, which is still intact, but with a close like we are looking to have today, if the market was to close similar to how we're looking now, could see a breakout potentially to the downside, and after that could actually see a bit of a reversal or maybe bigger retracement to the downside for GPUSD, breaking through that trend line there. So bias is to the downside. I think we could see a nice push into around this level here. Actually, I think we really came to test it, so yeah, that's why we're getting that reaction. But I do think if we get a nice close below that on the daily, so below the trend line, we could potentially go a lot further. So bias is to the downside here for probably the next week or so for GPUSD. I think could see a bit of retrace, maybe come back and retest that area. You can see an hourly chart or quite extended to the downside. So likely to have a bit of retrace first, but I do think GPUSD is still on its way back to the downside. EURUSD, similar case. I do expect EURUSD to roll over to the downside. As you can see, we failed to take out this area here in the market. As it like could see a potential push to the upside, but price got rejected, and it looked like we are slowly breaking to the downside. So my bias right now for EURUSD is the downside, back to the lows again, back down to that previous low, which is around 1.18435. I think we could potentially actually take that out, that low, since we've had all this bearish pressure to the downside. Big swing to the downside. Looks like price is kind of consolidating slash pulling back, and it looks like it's finishing that, and we're going to see a continuation to the downside for EURUSD. So I do think EURUSD is probably going to roll over back to the downside, back to the lows, potentially even see a lower low with that structure there on the 4 hourly, unless we were to take out this area here. As you can see, we had a big push to the upside, big change in momentum, and fell back down again. If we were to come up and take out that level there, I'll probably change my bias and probably say EURUSD could see a continuation back up again. But for now, I do think EURUSD looks like it's going to roll over to the downside and potentially create some new lows there. Euro NZD, very bullish here. As you can see, broke to the upside outside this consolidation here on the 4H, and took off here. So Euro NZD, my bias is still to the upside for this pair. I think we can see a push into this key level here, really nice support resistance. As you can see, this resistance gave us that whole swing to the downside. So I think with this bullish momentum here, prices look like it's going to come and test 1.7. So I do see Euro NZD continue to the upside. Obviously, we are very overextended to the upside here. We have all this built up accumulation here, and then big push to the upside, releasing that energy to the upside there. So we are due some retrace now. You can see the level of momentum that came from that level. So we are due some retrace. But I do think any push to the downside now for USD is just a pullback. It's just retracement for price to continue on its journey to the upside. We do have this prior resistance here, kind of the top of the range. So it would be nice if price to pull back to around this area here. Again, quite a substantial pullback relative to the move that we've had upside. But I do think USD is still on its way up to around 1.7. Again, that daily key area, potentially break through it. If we're having a proper reversal, it probably would break through that level. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we get to that. But nonetheless, USD is looking bearish here. Probably expect to see a bit of retracement coming into the market now. We can see on the hourly starting to slow down. 4 hourly looks very extended here, but I still see this pushing up to around that 1.7 level and potentially higher. So bias is the upside for USD, down for GPUSD, and down for EURUSD. So I hope that analysis helped on those pairs. Okay, so it's just come back to 12 p.m. So I'm going to look to end the live stream shortly. We're going to do a quick rundown on some of the pairs I looked at before. And no, I don't normally. I normally do it by eye. So I normally look after my trades manually rather than electronically. So if it does go to my target, I would normally exit the trade by actually closing it rather than the platform closing my trade for me, and same with trading stop loss as well. So I do trail my stop loss using structure of the market, but I don't actually trail my stop loss using the platform just in case we have forced breakouts. A lot of times you do see wicks take you out and still moving the direction, so I normally still exit the trade manually, but I do trail my stop loss, and I do set targets for my trades, but I don't use them manually there in the market. Yeah, I do have a video of how to grow a small account. Did that quite a while ago. If you just go on my channel, you can check that out. Again, that's a few months ago, so I'll probably leave a link for you in the live chat. But yeah, I have done one. But yeah, like I said, gonna just do a quick rundown of some of the charts that we've looked at previously, see how they've got on, and also my current trade as well. So again, AUD bias is looking like it could be to the downside here, again, long term, because it does look like we could be seeing a breakout of this trend line here in the market. So again, this is the daily chart here. So if I just zoom in, you can see first, second, third, right now having a fourth test, and it looks like we could be breaking through that level. Of course, we still got about, I don't know, about 9 hours or so before that candle closes, so a lot could happen there. We could pull back up, we could continue further, but I do think we could be seeing a breakout potentially. This is the daily range that I've got here between 0.78 key level resistance and key level support at 0.76500. Looks like if we do break through that trend line, the likelihood is we're going to break through that support as well, and after that I think AUD could see a really nice fall to the downside back down to 0.74 potentially. So again, if you're looking at the low time frames, could look to trade the pullbacks there on the hourly or whatever time frame you look to trade, but I do think could see a breakout to the downside for AUD. But of course we do need to see some daily closes getting past that support and that trend line. On the 4H will kind of overextend to the downside, so I am expecting to see some pullbacks now, but nonetheless, if we do see a nice close outside that trend line, could potentially be looking for to continue that short bias to the downside, but going to be expecting some retrace now for AUD. EURUSD, like I was saying earlier, expecting this one to roll over to the downside here. As you can see, price is having one last push to the upside, seeing if it can push higher, but then it just rolled over to the downside and saw some nice bearish momentum coming back into the market there. So bias is to the downside for EURUSD. Does look like it will roll over to the downside. This here could potentially be a double top there, and it looks like we're trying to break through that previous neckline there in the market. So bias is to the downside as long as we stay below that previous high there. I think we'll come back to the lows 1.4 at 1.18435, and probably actually see a lower low as well potentially. Next, we're going to look at GPUSD. So GPUSD again, bias to the downside here. Kind of already hit the target already where I said price, if we do break out that support of where price will probably go, which is this area here, there on the daily. The zoom out, it's that area there on the 4H, really just tapped into it, wicked into that level quite nicely. Price is already pulling back a bit. Again, it was a big area of accumulation before we had that big push to the upside. So tap back into that, likely to see some retrace now for GPUSD. And for me, it's all about the daily close now. If we can just push off through that trend line with some conviction, similar to how we're looking now, could look to see a bigger retracement to the downside, potentially even back to this previous low here in the market. So around 1.36325. So could see a lot of retracement now after that big push that we've had to the upside over the past few months now for GPUSD. Looks like the market's ready to relieve itself, so it does look like see a bit of retracement first, but yeah, all about the daily close for me. But it does look like we'll see some further continuation to the downside for GPUSD. USD CAD again still looking bullish here. As you can see, we've had that nice push to the downside. Price broke back above this key area of support, held it, and you can see it's taken off to the upside back up to that 1.26 level. So again, USD CAD, another one that could be in for a reversal sooner or later. But again, key trend line that I want to see broken first before I start calling a reversal for this pair. I did, however, say we could see a push to 1.26, which is this key level of resistance there in the market. So I think that's where USD CAD is headed, back to 1.26. Whether we'll see a break or price respect it, not too sure yet. But if we do fall to the downside, could see another swing back down again and price have a bit of consolidation here, because again USD CAD does consolidate quite a lot. But if you get above 1.26 and hold, the likelihood we could break through that trend line and see the reversal. But for now, expect USD CAD to continue a little bit higher, potentially to 1.26, and then probably expect some retracement after that. USD-JPY for this pair, again a little bit unclear. Do have that consolidation in there, and I've also drawn that trend line. So if we do break through that trend line, we'll probably see a nice swing back up to that resistance up there, break through the support, probably see it move into 107, this key level of liquidity here, where we saw a big push to the upside from. So if you do break that support there, that's where I probably expect price to come into. However, again, we're still kind of just holding that support. So for me, there's no real opportunity there for USD-JPY unless you're anticipating a swing back to the upside, back into that resistance. But again, very corrective price action. So not too convinced just yet. Probably waiting on the sidelines for this one to see if we can get a movement to the downside, break through that hold and then continuation. Or if we just break through the trend line, then we'll probably see a move into that resistance. And also if you factor in the weekly trend line that we're testing right now as well, really strong weekly trend line we've come into. So again, could see a bearish reaction off that as well. USD-CHF for this one, if I just clear up the chart for a second, we're coming into a very key level of, well, currently really trading at a key level of daily resistance. As you can see in the market, strong resistance, and now price is at that level. I am favoring price to break to the upside now for USD-CHF, because it does look like we're failing to push lower. As you can see, we've had strong pushes to the downside, a lot of impulsive moves. You can see by the size of these bearish candles, but as you can see, they are short-lived. Price then accumulates, pushes back up again, falls to the downside, pushes back up again, falls to the downside, push back up again. So that's telling me that price is failing to push to the downside, and all of this consolidation here is just a pullback, just price having a bit of a breather, and then we'll probably see a breakout to the upside. It does look like price wants to break through this resistance anyway, and I think once we clear that, it's a very high probability chance that will come back to these highs and probably clear them as well. So the bias is to the upside for USD-CHF here. Might see a bit of retrace maybe one last time, but as you can see, we're getting this bit of a bowl shape here. Price is failing to create lower lows, and now it's actually starting to create higher lows. So the bias is to the upside for USD-CHF. Could see a bit of a pullback first because of where we are in the market, all that consolidation. Might struggle to break through that at first, but I do see USD-CHF breaking through that level and coming back to highs. And GBCAD looking for a move to the upside for this one, being this trade since last week. Was going quite nicely, but as you can see, we're kind of just consolidating here. So just playing the waiting game really for this pair to see what happens. Still looking for a move to the upside back into this area here in the market. Previous support and resistance, so you can go and retest that area. But right now price is a little bit sideways. I did say as long as we stay above this level here in the market, I will remain in the trade. And as you can see, we're still trading along it. So no reason for me to exit just yet, but still looking for that swing to the upside. So we'll see how that gets on. I'm doing a live stream again tomorrow, same time, so make sure you're there to check that out, and I'll fill you in of how GBCAD's doing, and of course look at some other pairs as well. But that is the end of today's live stream. I hope you all enjoyed it and found it useful. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and also leave a like on the video if you're feeling generous. But thanks again for watching, guys, and until the next one, I will see you guys later.